All right, we got a Fox News alert now. China's relationship with Iran is a major topic of discussion for President Trump's two-day meeting with President Xi. So let's break it down where China's at and the relationship with that renegade country in the Middle East. First off, oil and gas. If they want to sell sanctioned oil, they sell it at a discount to China. The world looks the other way because it's China. There was a time in which we were cooperating with China, and Russia was cooperating with us to try to isolate Iran. Those days are over. In terms of military assistance, this is big. So some of their drones and their technology, able to sync it up with missile defense, that has been provided since 2021 by China to Iran, enables them to be able to repel maybe some Israeli attacks and now predominantly our attacks. And then the diplomatic effort. Iran is isolated in the world, but they've been brought into BRICS, which is a trade organization, and they brought in the Shanghai Group cooperation. And what they are is groups as an alternative to the West, to the European Union, to the G7, other groups like that. It hasn't really worked to replace the dollar. It hasn't worked because we have the strong economies of the world. And China, for example, needs to be able to sell their goods to the West, to predominantly to us. So right before leaving yesterday, President Trump previewing his message to President Xi when it comes to war with Iran.
Well, I think, number one, we're going to have a long talk about it. I think he's been relatively good, to be honest with you. You look at the blockade, no problem. And I think you're going to see that good things are going to happen. This is going to be a very exciting trip. A lot of good things are going to happen.
Well, let's hope. Michael Allen served as senior director of the National Security Council under President George W. Bush and joins us now. So, Michael, laying out roughly what you've been looking at, too, as a national security expert, where would you start with President Xi?
Well, I think inevitably the president wants to make this mostly about trade. He is focused on the economy. It's a passion of his. So I think he'll try and make some suggestions to the Chinese about how they might reform their system and at a minimum push them to make greater purchases of agricultural products from the United States. But let's not be mistaken here. The Iran war is going to dominate the subtext of this entire visit. I don't think China is going to stick their neck out on our behalf. I hope the president can press them, just like you said in the graphics before, about with their support for military equipment and components that go to the Chinese. Maybe we get a little cooperation with them behind the scenes to urge the Iranians to meaningfully compromise, but I don't think they're going to give us anything on the order of what we want due to their alliance with other adversaries that don't appreciate a Western-led world.
So let's just roll through while we talk about it. China's oil imports, and they're tapping into their reserves, and they got a lot of it, so they're not really feeling the pinch yet, but they are paying higher prices, and there are reports of gas lines in China. They get 106,000 from Qatar and Kuwait, 395,000 barrels. Iran and Iraq pretty close in terms of what they're importing. But guess what, Michael? Our allies, the Gulf states, do have leverage over China. And they could say, hey, you have to make a choice. Iran is rocketing us. We're selling you oil. Maybe we pare that back until you make a decision, Gulf states or Iran.
I think you're exactly right. I think we ought to lean on our allies in the Gulf. We've done that already, by the way, on a variety of other technology issues that they're interested in. We've encouraged them to do less security-wise with the Chinese. And I think you're exactly right. We would be wise to lean on them to explain that they're going to have a worse relationship with these two influential monarchies, being the UAE and, of course, Saudi Arabia, unless they play a more constructive role. So I hope they'll do it, but I don't think they want to be seen as helping us on the world stage. They don't want to seem like they're selling out their ally. But you're right. I hope we're using all diplomatic levers and leverage that we have so that the Chinese might be able to exercise some influence over Iran.
All right. So people kind of seem to be rooting against the president. Just I watch other channels. I read other newspapers. You see what's happening. But there's a risk for China. We go back in and finish them off, and there's a new regime in charge. They lost all influence, just like they lost in Venezuela, just like they're in the process of losing in Cuba, Argentina. You could look at Bolivia, other places in our region. So if they stay on the sidelines and said, let's see what happens, let's help maybe silently, quietly rearm Iran, they could lose if we ramp it up again, because we have a partner in Israel that knows how to finish the job.
I think you're right. They need not push too hard here, because I think at the end of the day, they don't want us to have an enormous reaction and try and topple the regime over time. I think they might say to them, I hope you've got an off-ramp. I hope you can move through this, because if you don't, the United States is going to come back, and Israel as well. And now the UAE, bigger and better against Iran. So I think it's a great approach. I think we need to exercise all this influence over the Iranians, but we need to be clear-eyed about this, and that's that the Chinese are not necessarily our friends on this.
So with the president's got all these CEOs with him, you know he loves trade and the economy, he made that clear. So what does success look like when he boards that plane in 2 days and comes home?
You know, I think they have very modest goals. You, of course, discussed earlier what we've been doing with them lately, and that's the truce. We want to maintain the flow of critical minerals from China. We need them for military applications and cars and everything else that are manufactured here in the United States. So we want to keep that pipeline open while we develop our own internal sources. I think also that you'll see that the Chinese are most interested in bringing down tariffs, or at least not having the president crank them up to 50-some-odd%. So I think that's the trade. They want to keep things going. We want to make sure they purchase things from the United States, everything from Boeing to soybeans. And I think as long as that happens, it'll be seen as a stabilizing relationship. After all, these two are going to get together 3 times this calendar year, so maybe they can meter out what they want to do.
There's going to be a return visit, we know, and they'll probably announce that before they leave. Michael Allen, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Let's see what happens. And we'll cover it all here.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.